Hi, this is Rich Kim with AZ Fly Shop, and today we're doing some pro tips for It Sets You Free Outdoors podcast. All right, so today we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk a little bit about fishing at night. Fishing, with a moon, right? The different phases, that kind of thing. A little bit. We're not going to get real technical about it, but anyway. So a lot of people ask questions about, how do you fish at night and what kind of flies you want to use and what kind of techniques and stuff like that. We get that question a lot. So most people think, oh, we're fishing like something floating on the surface like a mouse, right? So like this guy right here is a mouse, right? And we've got lots of different mice. We've got this guy, which is a much more traditional style, right? This is very close to what we call a Moorish mouse, right? And obviously, it doesn't look as much like a mouse as this guy, right? But it's really, because it's night and the light is low, we're really just looking for a profile, right? And this is pretty close. Actually, to mice here in Arizona, this is about the size of them, right? This is more like a rat. Anyway, but you don't necessarily, these work great, but sometimes they don't. And the reason for that, I think, is if you have, let's say you have a full moon, and usually that phase lasts for a few days, right? Between like a 3/4 moon all the way up through the full phase. What happens is if you have enough light penetration from that moon, I think the fish actually can see the bottom better. So they end up eating things on the bottom, right? Things that they ordinarily, if there was no moon, they wouldn't be able to even see, right? When it's darker or when there is no moon, they tend to feed closer, to this basically the surface or the edges, right? Like whether it's a creek or it's a lake or whatever. So what you're going to end up fishing a lot of times is you're going to end up fishing things, that they can, locate along, that shallower water or in that boundary area near the banks, right? So, and that's where mice can come in really, really handy. When you have the moon and they have all that light penetration, sometimes those fish, they suddenly realize basically that there's all this life that's crawling around on the bottom or near the bottom. And so that's where they tend to feed, and they don't look up as much, right? So, sometimes that's what will happen. So if you're fishing at night, like, and you're not having a lot of success with a mouse or a popper or something like that, then, it's sometimes a good idea to go ahead and take that off and then tie on something like, this is supposed to be a crawfish, right? But it's just basically some kind of a streamer with, the lead eyes on it that sinks it, and throwing these at the banks and then just kind of like, slowly either dragging it or just very, kind of slowly kind of, hopping it, and, because they are focused more on the bottom, sometimes things like this or, things like this crawfish, which is a little bit more traditional style, right? These tend to work better in those situations, right? The main thing though is you're always trying to move water, right? You want the thing, every time you move it or every time it hits the water or whatever, you want it to push a fair amount of water, right? So as like this little, woolly bugger, which is, your standard traditional black woolly bugger that we've seen forever, 100 years, it doesn't push that much water versus something like this, which is, been tied to have more mass in the front of it, so that when you do strip it or whatever, it moves some water. And then of course, because fish have the lateral line, that's how they sense, vibration or whatever. That's how they, know, that's how they can target, a prey item. So you want to, no matter what you're doing at night, you want to be able to go ahead and tie something on that moves a lot of water, right? Or as much water as possible. Another thing is fish, all of your game fish, they see in color, right? But they don't, at night, there's not a lot of colors to see. Well, the last color that a fish can see is actually purple, right? So I brought, some purple flies, right? Now, these are all dries. This is a hopper, obviously. This is supposed to be like a salmon fly or a stone fly, right? And then this is another hopper style, but it's very close to, say, a chubby Chernobyl, right? So the point is that they're all purple, right? And purple is a great color to fish in low light or in dingy water or at night, right? Because they'll be able to see that purple color long after they can't see black or red or orange or whatever, right? It seems counterintuitive in a way, but it's just like the wavelength of the light, right? Like they can actually, their receptors in their eyes will be able to pick up the purple after they can't see anything else, right? So whatever if you're gonna tie a mouse, right, or if you can find one that's purple, that's an ideal color for fishing at night.